With Good Friday today and the Easter weekend coming up, many schools have finished up for term 1 and you might now be heading into a 2-week holiday break. You might be feeling exhausted, burnt out, tired, and desperately need the break. But regardless of how you feel, I'm here to give you some advice on how to make the most out of your term 1 holidays and to use your time productively so that you don't suffer in term 2. Hi everyone and welcome back to the YouTube channel. If you don't know me, my name is Emil and I'm a first year medical student at Monash University, and I recently graduated from Scotch College in 2020 with an ATAR of 99.8 and a 99th percentile UCAT. On this channel, I try to help out students whose position I was in just a year ago by giving out advice and study tips. In this video, I'm hoping to give you guys some advice on the things that help me make the most out of my holidays and the principles of what you should be doing to try and set yourself up for success in term 2. This video might be a bit of a rambly one because I don't really have this video split up into separate parts. I just have my general advice and thoughts on what would be best for you guys to do during the holidays, but I still do hope that you make the most out of the tips I give you and set yourself up to do well in term 2. So without further ado, let me get into the advice that I think helped me make the most out of my holidays, and also into the things that I wish I had done in year 12 to set myself up to do well after the holidays had ended. Now, before I get into my advice and study tips, I do have to say that these things are much easier to say than they are to do. It's one thing entirely to know that it's good to use the Pomodoro technique or that you should start with 10 minutes and continue studying from there, but then it's another thing to sit down at your desk and do it yourself entirely. I don't want to paint a rosy picture of studying because there will often be times when you won't be motivated and you won't feel like studying at all and you just won't want to sit at your desk any longer. But I do give this advice in the hopes that you can aim to achieve these things, because if you even do half of them, you'll probably set yourself up to do very, very well in term 2. With that being said, let's move on to my first piece of advice, which is that you should try to spread out your holiday homework and all of your work over both weeks of the holidays. I've seen way too many people think that they can leave everything for the last week of the holidays, and as a result, they always suffer and have to do the work in the last 2 or 3 days. Now, this might be due to a number of reasons, but what I've always found is that if someone says that they're going to do all their study in the second week of the holidays, they actually always end up doing their study in the last 2 to 3 days of the holidays instead of the last week. Now, the thing that I think is quite bad about this is that doing your work in the last 3 days of the holidays never gives you enough time to actually commit things and definitions into your long-term memory. Since memory is so important in year 12, especially in VCE, I do think it's so important to be making the most out of your holidays, the first week and the second week, to make sure you can commit things to your long-term memory and remember them for the duration of the term. Now, I was someone who did this quite a lot as well, and I'm still someone who struggles with this to this day. The best piece of advice I've heard about not procrastinating during the holidays is that the person who you will be tomorrow is not the person who you are today, and that your present self is the only self who can do the work. Now, what this actually means is that if you're passing on your work to your future self, you're actually passing it on to a completely different person who will have different wants and different needs at the time when he has to do the work. Now, this mindset shift helped me quite a lot, I think, because it made me a lot more reluctant to procrastinate my work and also encouraged me to do it in the present. And the way this relates to the holidays in itself is that if you're feeling in the first week of the holidays that you have tomorrow, that you have the next week of the holidays, please take a moment and think to yourself the benefits of doing it now. I promise you that if you do the work earlier on, you'll feel that it isn't as bad and that also you have so much more time later on. Now, the second main piece of advice that I have for the holidays is that you have to realize the things that you are behind in. At the end of term 1, you might have been completely behind in maths. You might be feeling as though you're a couple of chapters behind, or that you don't really understand a topic that you went through in class. Now, the holidays are the perfect time for you to be consolidating on that information and also making the most out of the time to fill in the gaps in your knowledge. Now, the thing that you have to do really actively in year 12 is realize your weaknesses and make sure you understand everything that you might have possibly missed out on. If you realize that there's something you've missed out on or there's an area of weakness in your studies, you have to make sure to capitalize on the time you have during the holidays to cover for those weaknesses. Now this ties into my first point, which is that you must start doing this process early in the holidays so that you have the time you need to actually cover over your weaknesses while also getting ahead into term 2 and beyond. Realizing these weaknesses will mean that you don't end up going into term 2 with a weakness already in your study or in your knowledge, and also that later on in the year, you don't have to worry about that covering that point of weakness. Now the third piece of advice I have is that at the start of the holidays, you should definitely keep an eye out for the big things that are coming at the start of term 2. Now what I mean by this is that during the start of the holidays, you should definitely take some time to count the big events you have, the SACs you have, the exams you might have, and the outside of school activities that you might have to commit to during the start of term 2. Now getting an idea of these during the start of the holidays, make sure that you know what you need to do during the holidays to set yourself up to succeed in all of those things. Now, what you don't want to happen is to step into school on the first day of term 2 and to suddenly panic because you have a SAC next week. Looking at the start of the holidays to see this SAC in advance will definitely give you the amount of time and the preparation that you need to prepare for the SAC in advance so that you're not surprised when term 2 suddenly hits. As a result, keeping an eye on these big things that you have in term 2 and actually taking the time early on in the holidays to start preparing for them will definitely let you do so much better in term 2 and will reduce the amount of shock you feel going back from the holidays to school. Now the fourth piece of advice I have is quite contradictory to everything I've been saying so far, but it's that you need to relax during the holidays. Now you might be asking me, Emil, you've been saying this whole video that you need to start early on the holidays, you need to be working, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. But truly in the holidays, you do need to use this time to relax, recuperate from the stresses of term 1, and do relax so that you're strong and ready to go into term 2. I do believe that it is really important to do work during the term 2 holidays, but it is also important to find that good balance between doing work and relaxing at the same time. Now, a piece of concrete advice I have to help you guys with this is that you should try to keep your sleeping schedule from term during the holidays. Now, I think many people have the temptation to just sleep in during the holidays, and I've been a victim of that as well, but I've always found that when you wake up late, you're much more likely to waste a couple of hours, and then once you head into the afternoon, you're in holidays, you're especially heading into like relaxing time, going out, doing things with friends. Now, the thing that I think is really powerful about keeping your sleeping schedule is that if you wake up somewhat early, like 10 or 9 even, you have that 3 hours in the morning to do work during the holidays where almost no one will be disturbing you. Especially since a lot of your peers will be sleeping in during the holidays and sleeping for maybe 12, 13 hours sometimes. If you wake up early, you can actually make the most out of your day and use that time in the morning to do your study so that you still have the afternoon to be doing stuff with your friends and going out and all of that. I really think that if you wake up early in the mornings during the holidays, you can do so much more with your holidays in general, and that you can really find that easy balance between work and your life. Now that wraps up my tips for you guys heading into the term 1 holidays. I really do hope that you guys can make the most out of these tips to make the most out of your holidays so that you can head into term 2 feeling prepared and ready for the term. Do remember that in this time, you do have so much time, and that you should definitely make sure to keep in touch with your friends, your family, and to recuperate after a long and tiring term. I wish you guys all the best for these holidays. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like or subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.